Stunning dove found in very wet rainforest in the lowlands and foothills of western Colombia and northwestern Ecuador. Notable features include a chestnut back, pale belly, golden neck patches, and a striking head pattern. Might be confused with the duller olive-backed quail dove in dark forests, where color is not easy to discern. Note the neck patches and stronger contrast between white forehead and darker crown on purple quail dove, usually encountered alone, quietly walking along the forest floor. May ascend to a low perch when flushed or when it sings, a soft whistle repeated every few seconds. Stunning dove found in humid rainforest and lowlands and foothills. Notable features include a chestnut back, pale belly, golden neck patches, and a striking head pattern. Might be confused with the duller violaceous quail dove in dark forests, where color is not easy to discern. Note the bold face pattern on sapphire quail dove, usually encountered alone, quietly walking along the forest floor. May ascend to a low perch when flushed or when it sings, a soft, stuttered whistle repeated every few seconds. A smallish, chunky, ground-dwelling species of dense woodlands with thick leaf litter, prefers drier habitats. Secretive but not shy, sometimes detected by the rustling of leaves it is strolling through. The rather similar bridled quail dove is dull brown rather than reddish or purple on the upper back, and it has iridescent turquoise on the sides of its neck. Ruddy quail doves have less contrast in facial markings, and the males have an entirely rusty back. Some also sport a vertical white shoulder stripe. The blue-headed quail dove has a blue crown and bib. This species' song is a soft, low plaintive woo-woo, given at a single pitch, but growing gradually louder before dropping off abruptly at the end. A smallish, chunky, ground-dwelling species of forest, with dense leaf litter, prefers wetter habitats, secretive but not shy, sometimes detected by the rustling of leaves it is strolling through. The rather similar Key West quail dove lacks iridescent turquoise on the neck and has a reddish, or purple upper back unlike bridled, ruddy quail doves have less contrasting facial markings, and the males have an entirely rusty back. Some also sport a vertical white shoulder stripe. Song is a low, plaintive, hoo-hoo-woo, given at a single pitch, with second note initially growing louder and then leveling off. First note sometimes omitted. A plump ground-dwelling dove with a large but patchy distribution from Nicaragua to southern Brazil, relatively plain looking for a quail dove, with pale underparts and a blank face. Note rufous wings and purple sheen on nape and back. Ruddy quail dove is darker, richer brown, especially on the head and underparts. Shy and infrequently seen, although may be seen walking along quiet trails early and late in the day. Somewhat arboreal, often perching up in the lower to middle levels, typically found in mature forests or adjacent second growth. Shy, and infrequently seen, rather chunky dove of tropical forests and plantations in the lowlands and foothills, walks stealthily on the forest floor singly or in pairs, most often seen as it flushes explosively from underfoot or flies low across a quiet road or trail. Bright ruddy colored male is distinctive. Female is brown overall with a trace of the male's facial pattern, and has a pale vertical bar on the sides of the breast. Females lack the white tail corners as seen on white-tipped doves and related species. A multicolored chunky dove of dense, wet forests with thick leaf litter, it is most often found on the ground, sometimes in association with blue-headed or ruddy quail doves. Walks with an unusual posture with chest down, head forward, and tail up. Its unstriped head, pale gray forehead, and largely iridescent body eliminate other species within range. Song is upslurred repeated, hoo, sometimes preceded by ooh ooh ooh. A plump dove that inhabits dense, moist forests and foothills and mountains, prefers dense leaf litter, but is sometimes found along trails and roadsides. Its namesake crest is short and swept back, so it is not always readily apparent. However, it can be told from ruddy quail dove by its larger size, mostly purple upper parts, gray underparts, and lack of a bold pale facial stripe. Song is deep, hoo-hoo, with emphasis on the middle segment. A chunky, iridescent, deep purple dove of dense forests and coffee plantations. It is typically found on the ground walking among the leaf litter, sometimes in company of ruddy or Key West quail doves. Its unstriped head, white forehead spot, and iridescent purple body eliminates other species within range. Song is a goo-goo, given without pause, sometimes for several minutes. Plump ground-dwelling dove. Small for a quail dove and much darker overall compared with the others. Overall dark grayish with contrasting white face and cheek. Lower belly is whitish, fading to a buffy then. Pinkish red legs. Sexes alike. Prefers forests, usually on the ground unless flushed up into the lower levels of a tree. Like most quail doves, often best seen by quietly walking along trails at dawn and dusk. Retiring dove of forest floor, heard much more frequently than seen, like other members of the genus, can be found walking quietly on shady roadsides and trails, especially early and late in the day. Not easily told by sight from white-tipped dove, which occurs alongside Caribbean and Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. Best feature is white face and pale bluish nape of Caribbean dove. Also compare gray-headed dove. In flight, all species show white tail corners and rusty on underwings. Plump, pale, ground-dwelling dove with pink legs. Widespread and common throughout Middle and South America, from Texas to Argentina. Namesake white tips on outer tail feathers, more extensive than other closely related species. Paler than other relatives such as gray-chested or gray-headed doves, especially on the neck and belly, with less contrasting gray or rufous tones. Found in a variety of wooded habitats, more likely to be found in disturbed or scrubby areas than congeners, but also occurs within mature forests. Occasionally visits bird feeders, but otherwise shy and difficult to see well. Listen for low cooing song, starting with a short introductory hoot followed by a longer hollow note. Large terrestrial dove found in a variety of habitats including forest edges, dense secondary growth, and mature forest understory, skulking and easy to overlook, but can often be seen walking on quiet trails early and late in the day. In flight, white tips on outer tail feathers are often visible, like in similar white-tipped dove, but with less extensive white, also distinguished from that species by red, not blue skin around eye, and brighter more contrasting gray forehead. Frequently heard song is a mournful hoop, repeated every 5-10 seconds, particularly in the morning. A medium-sized, chunky dove of the inner and dry valleys, Yungas, and Tucuman forest with mixed podocarpus and alders, often alone or in pairs. Orbital ring varies from blue-purple north of the bend in the Andes to red south of this bend. Range overlaps with the very similar white-tipped dove, and is best separated by voice and, in some populations, orbital skin color, blue and white-tipped dove. Iris also generally darker than white-tipped dove, most often found, and easily identified by its low-pitched, stuttering song. A somewhat large, chunky dove of dry scrub woodlands, where it is typically found foraging on ground. Its plain plumage, the lack of white on the wings, and the very limited white on its tail, distinguish it from other doves on Grenada. Its song is a drawn-out low, plaintive, coo-loo, loudest near start, critically endangered. Retiring, terrestrial dove of humid tropical forest in the lowlands, heard more frequently than seen. Like other members of the genus, it can be found walking quietly on shady roadsides and trails, especially early and late in the day. It often flushes explosively and flies to a low perch in the understory, told from white-tipped dove and gray-chested dove by blue-gray crown and hind neck. In flight, all lepidolid doves show white tail corners and rusty under the wings. Retiring, terrestrial dove of humid tropical forest in the lowlands, heard more frequently than seen. Like other members of the genus, it can be found walking quietly on shady roadsides and trails, especially early and late in the day. It often flushes explosively and flies to a low perch in the understory, told from white-tipped dove and gray-chested dove by blue-gray crown and hind neck. In flight, all lepidolid doves show white tail corners and rusty under the wings. A rather plain medium-sized dove, mostly restricted to western Ecuador but also occurs in western Colombia and extreme northwestern Peru. Within range, the main confusion species is white-tipped dove. Pallid dove has notably darker and warmer brown upperparts that contrast more with the whitish underparts. Like other members of the genus, pallid is typically found on the ground or flushing up into the understory. It is most often seen walking on roads or trails or flying across quickly. There are a few places where it visits feeders. Within its limited range, it is fairly common, but be careful to separate from the equally, or more, common white-tipped dove. Listen for its low-pitched, single who call. Retiring, terrestrial dove, a humid tropical forest in the lowlands, heard more frequently than seen. Like other members of the genus, it can be found walking quietly on shady roadsides and trails, especially early and late in the day. It often flushes explosively and flies to a low perch in the understory, told from white-tipped dove and gray-headed dove by warm brown crown and hind neck, and duskier grayish chest. In flight, all Lepidolta doves show white tail corners and rusty under the wings. Shy dove found only in Andean cloud forest in central Colombia. The dull reddish-purple color on neck and breast, gray crown, and pale eye separated from the much more common and widespread white-tipped dove. Usually stays well hidden, but sometimes comes out into the open in clearings and along quiet roads, especially early in the morning. Gives low, well-spaced coos. Rare, colorful forest dove found in southwestern Ecuador and northwestern Peru. It is mostly reddish-violet with a darker purple back and wings and paler forehead and belly. If seen poorly, it might be mistaken for white-tipped dove or pallid dove, but note the purple, not brown, back and the more rosy underparts. Inhabits dry, deciduous forest as well as humid forest, and may be only a seasonal visitor in some areas. Typically encountered walking quietly on the forest floor, but may ascend to a low perch to sing. Song is a soft, low-pitched, descending coo. Bulky, grayish-brown dove with conspicuous white patch on wings. When perched, the white patch looks like a line along the bottom edge of the wing, but it is more obvious in flight, contrasting with the dark outer wings. Also look for bold white tips on tail feathers, heftier and shorter-tailed than mourning dove. Also compare with Eurasian collared dove. White-winged is darker and more contrasty on the wings and tail. Found in deserts, fields, cities and suburbs, and open wooded habitats from the southern U.S. to Panama, including the Caribbean. Usually common, sometimes traveling in large flocks, especially in winter. Visits backyard feeders. Common and conspicuous dove of desert lowlands and foothills, found in wide range of open and semi-open habitats from town streets and gardens to farmland and palm oases, range expanding rapidly south. Feeds on ground and in trees, sometime with smaller and plainer-eared dove. Bold white wing band and broad white tail corners are distinctive. Also note the violet blue-ring, mournful cooing song commonly heard all day long year-round. Spelt with a long, pointed tail. Plain brown overall with dark spots on wing. Juvenile is covered with pale scaly pattern, but is much larger and longer-tailed than ground doves. Widespread and common throughout much of North America, from southern Canada to Panama, including the Caribbean. Found in a variety of habitats, from agricultural fields to lightly wooded areas. Loves suburbs, where it often sits on telephone wires, and visits bird feeders. Avoids dense forest, but found on forest edges, usually seen in pairs or small flocks, sometimes gathering in larger numbers, especially in winter. Listen for distinctive cooing song and whistling wings as it takes off. Slender dove native to Socorro Island, located in the Pacific Ocean 360 miles from mainland Mexico. It was wiped out due to introduced feral cats and habitat loss, and last seen there in the 70s. Fortunately, it still survives in captivity, and plans are underway to reintroduce it back into its ancestral homeland in the future. Plumage is mostly coppery brown with a dark ear patch, black spots on the wings, and white in the tail. Iridescent feathers on the side of the neck can look violet or green, depending on the light. Local and often rather wary dove of fairly open coastal habitats, such as beach dunes with desert scrub, overgrown fields, town edges, resembles widespread mourning dove of North America, but slightly stockier, with a shorter and squared tail, feeds on the ground, but most often seen in flight, which is fast and direct, usually rather low over the treetops. Best field mark is the white trailing edge to the inner part of the wing, usually quite distinct in flight. South America's most widespread and abundant dove, found from sea level up to 4,000 m. Appearance much like mourning dove of North America, pale grayish-brown overall with iridescent patch on neck, black spots on wing and neck, and reddish legs. Larger than ground doves, more slender than Leptodula doves, and with black wing spots. Found in open and disturbed habitats including agricultural fields, towns and cities, and shrubby areas. Often gathers in flocks. Attractive dove endemic to Galapagos. Quite distinctive, with reddish-brown head and breast, blue circle around eye, red legs, and bold black and white markings on wings and head. Favors arid areas with abundant cacti, usually not found in towns. Largely terrestrial, but sometimes perches up on a bush or cactus. Usually shows little or no fear of people. Plump ground-dwelling dove, quite bright and colorful, compared with other quail doves. Body is grayish, wings are rich brownish purple, and nape is suffused with iridescent green. Like many quail doves, face is whiter with dark mustache line, but note buffy forehead, pinkish red legs. Sexes alike, prefers forests, usually on the ground unless flushed up into the lower levels of a tree. Like most quail doves, often best seen by quietly walking along trails at dawn and dusk. Very local, poorly known, and elusive dove of humid evergreen forest, in foothills and mountains of Sierra de los Tuxtlas, near Catemaco in southern Veracruz, feeds mainly on the forest floor, walking quickly away, or flushing explosively from close range. May be seen beside quiet trails early and late in the day, heard more often than seen. Note the white face with a black whisker, and blue-gray hind neck and breast. Plump ground-dwelling dove, not very colorful, compared with other quail doves. Gray overall, darker brownish on wings, with paler whitish face and dark mustache line. Pinkish red legs, iridescent purple patch on back can be difficult to see. Sexes alike, prefers forests, usually on the ground unless flushed up into the lower levels of a tree. Like most quail doves, often best seen by quietly walking along trails at dawn and dusk. Fairly large but elusive dove of humid evergreen and pine evergreen forests in the highlands. It feeds mainly on the forest floor, and may be seen beside quiet trails early and late in the day, either walking quickly away or flushing explosively from close range. Heard much more often than seen. Rusty brown overall with blue-gray crown and whitish face. It lacks the white tail corners of the smaller and grayer white-tipped dove, and is much larger than the male ruddy quail dove, with a different head pattern. Plump ground-dwelling dove, large for a quail dove with buffy face, gray crown, scaly neck, and white throat. Body mostly brown, sexes alike, found in montane forests at higher elevations than other quail doves, from 1,000–3,300 m. Usually walks on the ground unless flushed up into the lower levels of a tree. Like most quail doves, often best seen by quietly walking along trails at dawn and dusk. Listen for low-pitched descending coo notes. Plump ground-dwelling dove. Large for a quail dove with buffy face, gray crown, scaly neck, and white throat. Body mostly brownish. Sexes alike. Very similar to white-throated quail dove, but no range overlap and typically occurs at slightly lower elevations. Found in the foothills and subtropical zone, up to 2,500 m. Usually walks on the ground unless flushed into the lower levels of a tree. Like most quail doves, often best seen by quietly walking along trails at dawn and dusk. Listen for low-pitched coo notes. Plump ground-dwelling dove. Quite bright rufous overall compared with other quail doves. Entire body is warm rufous, similar to ruddy quail dove, but note gray crown and black mustache line. Pinkish red legs. Sexes alike. Prefers forests, usually on the ground unless flushed up into the lower levels of a tree. Like most quail doves, often best seen by quietly walking along trails at dawn and dusk. A plump ground-dwelling dove with limited range in eastern Panama, and barely into Colombia. Brownish above with a grayer breast, whitish face, and reddish legs. Namesake rufous crown is distinctive, most common in foothills from around 750–1,600 m, but sometimes lower. Like other quail doves walks stealthily on the forest floor, singly or in pairs. Perhaps most easily seen beside quiet trails early and late in the day. Heard more often than seen.